What happens when the people at the very top of power look down on the one they think is at the very bottom? Sometimes, life has a way of turning the tables in the most shocking way possible. This is the story of how 4 billionaire CEOs humiliated a janitor, only to discover, just one phone call later, that she held the future of their $100 billion empire in her hands. The sun was setting behind the skyline, painting the city gold as a towering skyscraper gleamed like a monument to power. Inside, on the top floor, a meeting unlike any other was about to begin. 4 of the world's richest and most feared CEOs had flown in on private jets, their arrival whispered about in headlines and news broadcasts all day. The conference room was a palace of glass and steel, its walls lined with expensive artwork, its table stretching long enough to seat a king's court. Cameras and assistants waited quietly at the edges, eager to witness history. These men weren't just businessmen, they were titans, known for crushing competitors and rewriting the rules of global markets. Tonight, they were signing a $100 billion deal, one that promised to shake the entire financial world. Their suits were custom-made, their watches worth more than houses, and every detail of the evening screamed wealth and authority. But in the corner of the room, almost invisible, was someone who didn't belong in their world of power. A janitor, a black woman in her late 50s, pushed a cleaning cart and quietly swept the polished floor. She moved with care, her hands rough from years of hard work, her uniform faded from countless washes. To her, it was just another night's duty. To them, she was nothing. As the CEOs entered, they barely glanced her way. Their eyes stayed fixed on the glowing contracts in front of them, blind to the fact that the woman in the corner would soon hold their fate. They thought they were about to change the future of business. What they didn't know was that their own future would be rewritten before the ink ever touched the paper. The meeting had begun, and the CEOs settled into their leather chairs, speaking in low, confident voices. The air was thick with arrogance, every sentence dripping with pride over the deal they were about to seal. Their assistants hovered nervously nearby, ready to bring coffee, papers, or anything their powerful bosses demanded. In the middle of all this, the janitor moved quietly, sweeping away tiny specks of dust from the shining floor. She tried to stay unnoticed, but even her silence seemed to bother them. As she bent to pick up a piece of paper that had slipped under the table, one of the men smirked. "Careful," he muttered loud enough for the others to hear.
"Don't scratch the floor.
"It costs more than her yearly salary." The second CEO chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Her whole outfit looks like it costs less than my tie," he added, tugging at the silk around his neck. Laughter rippled around the table, sharp and cruel. The third CEO joined in, shaking his head. "Imagine working all your life just to end up cleaning up after men like us. What a waste." The fourth didn't hold back either, making a joke about her shoes and her skin, words that cut deeper than any blade. The room erupted with laughter, echoing off the glass walls like a celebration of cruelty. The janitor froze, her face calm but her heart heavy. She had endured insults before, but something about this moment burned deep inside her. They saw only a uniform, not a woman with dignity, strength, and a story they could never imagine. Quietly, she gripped the handle of her cart, her mind already made up. What the CEOs believed was a joke would soon become the turning point of their lives. The laughter from the boardroom still echoed in her mind as the janitor walked down the long polished hallway. Her steps were slow, steady, but inside her chest, her heart pounded with a quiet fire. She had spent decades working in silence, bowing her head, and enduring disrespect, but this time, something inside her had shifted. She stopped near a tall window overlooking the glittering city, the skyline glowing with 1,000 lights. To the CEOs, those lights represented power and wealth. To her, they were a reminder of how far she had come, and how little they truly knew. Reaching into her pocket, she pulled out a simple phone, scratched and worn from years of use. She dialed a number without hesitation, waiting only a moment before a calm, confident voice answered. "Hello, Mama," the woman on the other end said warmly. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "It's time," the janitor said quietly, her voice steady but carrying the weight of everything she had endured. "Tonight, they showed me exactly who they are. I cannot let this pass." The voice on the other end grew firm. "Then the deal is finished." In that moment, the janitor wasn't just a worker cleaning floors. She was the mother of the chairwoman who controlled the investment group funding the $100 billion merger. With a single decision, her daughter held the power to end everything the CEOs had built. The janitor closed her phone and took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She didn't need to shout or fight back. She had made her call, and that was enough. By morning, the men who laughed at her would understand that respect is priceless, and arrogance always carries a cost. The next morning, the boardroom was alive with celebration. The 4 CEOs strode in confidently, their suits sharp, their grins wide. Assistants buzzed around them, pouring champagne into crystal glasses, preparing the contracts for signatures. "Gentlemen," one of them said proudly, "today marks the dawn of a new empire." Cameras were ready to capture the moment that would broadcast their triumph to the world. But just as the golden pens were placed in their hands, the door burst open. A pale-faced assistant hurried in, clutching a phone. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Sir, there's been a problem." The room fell silent. The lead CEO frowned, annoyed by the interruption. "Handle it later," he snapped. But the assistant stood frozen.
You don't understand.
"The investors have pulled out. The deal, it's gone."
The word struck like thunder.
The CEOs laughed at first, certain it was a mistake.
Impossible, one barricade. Do you know who we are? No one walks away from US.
But within minutes, confirmation arrived, emails, phone calls, frantic messages. The $100 billion deal, the crown jewel of their legacy, had vanished overnight. The investors, the backbone of the entire plan, had withdrawn completely. Shock spread across their faces. Their power, their pride, their certainty, it all crumbled in an instant. They demanded answers, and soon the truth came out. The chairwoman who canceled the deal was the daughter of the very janitor they had mocked and humiliated. The CEOs sat in stunned silence, the weight of their arrogance crushing them. The laughter from the night before now echoed in their ears like a curse. They had thought her powerless, but with a single phone call, she had undone everything they built. The skyscraper that had roared with pride the night before now sat in heavy silence. The 4 CEOs, once so untouchable, stared at the empty contracts before them, their empire collapsing in their hands.
No press conference, no photographe, no champagne, only the bitter taste of failure.
For the first time in their careers, they realized money could not buy back respect once it was lost. Meanwhile, in the quiet corners of the building, the janitor continued her work. She moved slowly down the hallway, mop in hand, her expression calm and steady. She had not shouted, argued, or sought revenge. She had simply stood tall in her silence and let the truth reveal itself. The men who mocked her now carried the weight of their arrogance, while she carried only her dignity. Later that day, one of the CEOs caught sight of her in the lobby. For a brief moment, their eyes met. The smugness that once gleamed in his gaze was gone, replaced by something unfamiliar, shame. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came. She simply nodded politely and walked past him, leaving him standing small and powerless in the shadow of his own choices. The world soon learned of the failed deal, and headlines buzzed with speculation. But the true story, the one that mattered, remained unspoken in the newspapers. It was a lesson written not in ink or money but in humanity. Power is fragile, wealth is fleeting, and arrogance blinds even the greatest of men. That night, as the janitor stepped outside into the cool air, she lifted her head to the city lights. She smiled softly, knowing she didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Respect was never about status or fortune, it was about character. And in the end, she had won.